And here we are with all to play for. Benfica faces Sporting in a game that could dictate who the champion will be. We got that, much more. We also got a guest tonight. Another podcast.
Hasta que no estás aquí dentro no sabes la grandeza de este equipo.
Quero Benfica intimidar o adversário. Quero um manto sagrado entrar com vocês em qualquer estádio e assustá-los, pá! É isso que eu quero!
Depois eu explico porquê.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Dog Benfica podcast. My name is Alfredo Fumaças, with you on Wednesday nights, sometimes Tuesday nights, sometimes Thursday nights, sometimes not here. But here we are. 559th episode is what we're up to, with me, as always, Cristiano Oliveira. What's happening?
Alfredinho, what's going on? How you doing? Listen, before we start the podcast, I want you to repeat these couple of words for me, please. Okay? Go New York, go New York, go.
Go New York, go New York, go.
That's for all my Massachusetts friends and Timo and everybody else. All my buddies in green, you know what I'm saying?
I had no part of that. I had no idea what was going on. I just went along.
Oh, don't worry about it. They know what I'm talking about. So let's hope that this continues. The green losing, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, Alfredo, besides my ears ringing, a headache, and, the nausea, I'm okay. I'm excited to be on the Benfica podcast. Very, very interesting week up ahead. I'm excited to talk to the Freddies here in the chat. Please do yourselves a favor and smash the like button.
Smash that like button.
Yes, sir. Diogo Reis, you can go to sleep. Everybody else,
Diogo Reis, fucking troublemaker.
Feel free to chat here with us on the chat. It's a pleasure to talk to you guys. Let us know what's on your mind.
Yeah.
Let us know what your mood is going into Saturday. We'll get into that again, as I said before, in a few minutes. But right now, we got to talk about the Estoril game first. And I'm pretty sure, Alfredo, you have a ton of questions.
Yeah.
And I will do my very best to sharpen my memory skills to see if I remember.
Might want to forget that one. If you haven't noticed yet, Dave's not here today. He's
big shout out to DO87.
DO87. Dave is out this week. He couldn't be here for much of his disappointment. Couldn't be here, but he's probably elsewhere, much better than we are. What do you call it? Eric Krakauer. You know Eric Krakauer. If you're a member of the community, Portuguese community, you know Eric Krakauer, big soccer head, New York. Now he's no longer a big soccer head. We'll have a chance to speak to him.
What is he? Little soccer head now?
No, he's just Eric Krakauer because he's.
That's it. He got rid of the big soccer head.
He got rid of big soccer head. That wasn't for him.
Right.
Once he got employed by Apple, it was all over.
Hopefully his head won't be too big today when he comes here on the podcast and talk to us about his lagartos. So we'll see.
No, we'll have a chat with him. Yeah, Eric will join us later when we preview the Sporting game. Obviously, Eric's a big Sportingista, and you guys know him from the Seleção podcast and a bunch of other podcasts. And Eric does some commentating on MLS games. Now he's doing WLS? Chris, what's the women's league?
Epá, estou a ver aqui o resumo dos Knicks Celtics. Estás-me a perguntar.
Já fodeu.
NWS, man. I'm pretty sure.
NWS? Yeah. National Women's Soccer. Is that it? National
Yes.
Women's Soccer?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. NWSL Soccer League, I think. Yes.
That's awesome. But anyway, let's get right into things here. We'll get into the Estoril game. We'll clean this off, and so Eric join us. So Benfica traveled a short distance to the coast of Portugal to play Estoril this past weekend, and it was what it looked like to be an easy game. It turned out to be a not so easy game at the end with with a lot of nerves. Benfica lined up with Truben, Araújo, Silva, Otamendi, and Dal. Carreras obviously serving a suspension from accumulation of yellow cards. Tino Auschnitz and Kokshu in the middle. Amdouni and Artur Kuglu on the wings, and Pavlidis up front. Nothing really odd here. This is the lineup when Carreras playing. Carreras is the one that plays, with Di Maria being hurt. Obviously, Laj opted for Amdouni on the right hand side, and look, it was a quick start for Benfica. Benfica started strong, as we usually do. 1-0 by Auschnitz off a Kokshu feed in the 7th minute. In the 36th,
he could have actually gone on the score sheet
2 minutes in.
minutes early, in the 3rd minute as well. Yeah, 3rd minute. He
almost
one-on-one with the goalie.
You almost missed the goal. He hit it in the 5-hole, but I mean, obviously,
that might have been intentional. I can't say.
You think so?
I've tried to do that. Yeah, you tend to. Sometimes you pick up your head and you try to pick a spot and be. At least I speak for myself. I can't speak for others, but my cocky ass, I try to make the goalie and stuff. But so that could be intentional. We don't know,
Yeah.
but it could be intentional. So I don't want to say you almost missed, because we see plenty of guys finishing through the goalie's legs. Quando aquilo tá ali, parece uma gaja na Broad Street.
Yeah, but we also know that
He's not good at
Auschnitz is not a finisher. He's just not a finisher.
Yeah, I mean, he could have finished earlier. But yeah, I'm just mentioning that he could have gotten on the score sheet early. Benfica, as you said, they came out the gates running, Alfredinho. Running. And it's good to see the team start off like that. All right, continue. 7th minute, Gulas. Right.
7th minute, goal by Auschnitz. 36th minute, Otamendi will double up our score sheet, and we will go into the half up 2-0 on Estoril in a half that really Benfica dominated and played really well. Started the second half well, but then there was a let-off. I don't know if the team started looking ahead to Sporting. Estoril wasn't really creating, but we let Estoril back in the game, and then, as it always is customary, we allowed Estoril into the game. Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm trying to do too many things at one point. We had a penalty called against us off of Otamendi, missed pass. He then recovers and he trips the guy in the box. Thankfully, Trubin saved that penalty, but in the 78th minute, Estoril ended up putting a goal to capitalize on what they had been doing up until that point. And then from the 70th minute all the way to the end of the game, it was really a lot of suffering. Benfica. We really need that. We all know that Benfica has trouble keeping the ball and controlling the game with the ball. It's just one of those games that you're sitting on the couch and you're kind of expecting for things to unravel, and we really don't need that. Chris, I know it was a while ago.
Alfredo, repeating a line that I've seldom used here on the podcast, and I think we all have, Dave included. We've always said, common theme. I was watching a basketball game and trying to talk to it at the same time. Then a barbecue commercial came on and I got hungry. This is a common theme. It's a common theme.
Yeah.
The team goes into the halftime and it comes out lackadaisical. It's not the same team that we saw in the first half. And this is, as I said, the common theme. It's happened more often than we all would like to admit for Benfica. Unfortunately, it came back to bite us in the ass early. But then again, fortunately, they weren't able to capitalize on their very good second half. Benfica was able to squeak away and get away with the 3 points and the all important 3 points. But yeah, things got a little bit rusty there for a second. You know what I mean? Things were not going well. Benfica wasn't playing to the same level of energy that they had in the first half. And I think that there was also a chip change in the other team as well. They came in the second half more aggressive, more energetic, pressing Benfica all over the place. To their credit, they played better. But just not good enough at the end of the day for the 3 points, or at least to steal 2 points from Benfica. And we're very thankful for that. But this is something that Benfica going into this game this week, and if we play the same way, I don't think we'll be as fortunate as we were coming away with the 3 points this past weekend.
100%. Important 3 points, but like I said, we didn't need all that suffering at the end of the game, and it was something that just I hate sitting on the couch and going through that the end of the game and just feeling my heart drop down to my stomach as you're watching these games, and it's just uncomfortable. It's not something that
I never got
we're
to that
used to.
point, Alfredo. In that one game, I never got to that point.
Yeah, never felt that
To be
things
brutally
that you're watching a
no,
train wreck in slow motion.
it wasn't. I mean, look, it was just obviously the penalty on that foul by Otamendi, and for some crazy reason, I'm still I'm still confident we're up 2-0, even if they score. I thought Benfica would pick up the energy. Benfica would obviously wake up. That would be a wake up call, and unfortunately, it wasn't. But Benfica was bailed out by Truben, and they just kept it coming. And Benfica never picked it up. But at that time, at that moment in time, I thought we were gonna be okay. And then even after they went up to 1, I never like that. We're talking about that pit in the stomach moment you're talking about. I
Yeah.
never got to it
No.
because at the end of the day, I think I told myself that the line I told you guys last week on the podcast, which was in theory Benfica could go there, lose the 3 points, and still come out champions. You get what I'm trying to say? Lose
Yeah.
the 3 points to Estoril, I should say, as long as they come out on Saturday and they beat Sporting. So I always had that chip in the back of my back pocket, and so I never really got to stressing. I don't even really think I was nervous to be brutally honest with you.
Yeah.
It was just one of those games. I thought Benfica was doing enough to hold on to the lead. I thought Benfica was doing enough to keep them away from real dangerous scoring opportunities. I don't think they had many. And so I was never really shaking in my pants. Now, the question I got for you, I posed this on Twitter, and a lot of people reacted to it. I thought I'd get a little bit more reaction, which was the question I'm going to ask you, if I was the only one that thought that Truman could have done better on the goal. I know people are going to give
You
him
weren't the only
the
one.
benefit of the doubt because they say he saved the penalty, and I think people was just giving him a pass because of the penalty save. But I think on that goal, I think he got his hands with the ball went right through his hands. It wasn't like he was late on it. None of that. He got his hand. The ball went through his arms, and I thought he could have done much better. Now, I don't
Yeah.
know if he was nervous,
Nah,
because he was so
weren't the
close
only
to the
one.
post.
You weren't
Right?
the only one.
That's what
Yeah. And that's
I'm sorry?
and you weren't the only one that thought that. And I thought the same thing in terms of the post. The proximity of the post, it looks like he didn't launch himself as in a full stretch as he could have because of the proximity to the post. That's what I got as I watched the replay.
Yeah, maybe.
Got that impression. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there that felt that he could have done better. He could have done better. But like you said,
Okay, well, you're only the second person I'm talking. Well, second after me. You're the first person, only the second person I know besides
yeah.
myself.
But I've heard and
that
read
thought.
that he could have done better.
I'm sorry.
I've heard and read that he could have
Okay.
done better. So you're not the only one on that camp. And I
Tu,
think
tu,
that,
tu és máquina. But before we go on, Alfredo, we haven't said hello to Ricardo Oliveira, Cristiano Oliveira, Manuel Cunha, Jason Gaidola, Alfredo Fumas, Diogo Reis, Manny Valadão, Jason
yeah,
Gaidola against Cesar da Silva. Carlos Amaro comes on and says, wasn't a confidence builder, that's for sure.
no, for sure.
Jason Gaidola says 2-goal leads are never safe, or never a safe lead for Benfica.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's referring back to what I said before, the common theme. We just can't put away these games for some crazy reason. So yeah, you Freddie's. I mean, feel free to answer the question if what you guys thought on the question I just asked Alfredo regarding the goal by
yeah,
the goal by Studio, whether Truman should have done better or not.
yeah. No, it's I hadn't said hello to the Freddies because we were waiting for more Freddies to come in to say hello. We didn't want to say hi to 3 people. But yeah, I think that yeah, it leaves a bit to desire that goal. I thought that Trubin could have done better also, but again, it's easy to from the outside and looking in than it is when you're there. But yeah, important 3 points for Benfica certainly. Coming into the derby, and certainly that's what we wanted to do. Come into the derby on equal footing, on equal points, so we could at our home be able to fight for that title. Just waiting on Eric to come in.
It was unfortunate to see Otamendi give up or commit that foul, I should say, for the penalty. I thought he was tremendous in the first half. He was everywhere.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he clipped the guy, and I mean, look, it is what it is. It's a penalty. I thought it was just inside the box. But we were bailed out
Yeah.
by Truman, at least for that one play. And yeah, for sure, I think Benfica could have played that second half much better, as Carlos mentioned. I mean, it's definitely not the confidence builder you want.
No, for
But
sure.
look, it was enough. At the end of the day, we all know very well that, you know, even if Benfica lost the game, you're not out of the championship, because the last game doesn't really matter when it comes to a derby. When it comes to Benfica Sporting, Benfica Porto, these types of games, your record doesn't matter, your momentum doesn't matter. And so at the end of the day, it all comes down to how you play that one day. Benfica is going home, playing that Estádio da Luz. Maybe they overlooked Studio in that second half. Maybe they started looking forward to Sporting. Maybe so. It's something that we as fans don't like to hear. We did not like to see, and we don't appreciate very much, because, as you said, it's not good for our hearts. But that being said, it was just enough. They did just enough to get the 3 points.
Yeah.
To get ahead of Sporting, at least for 24 hours, until Sporting played the very next day. And now things are tied up. And I mean, you have the weekend of all weekends, the Saturday of all Saturdays, the game of games. I mean, I don't recall the last time these two teams went this late into the season with the championship on the line, level on points. I think it was last time, it was when Luizão scored that goal between Ricardo's legs, but I'm not even sure. I don't even know if it was this late in the season. So yeah, I mean, this weekend Portugal vai parar. And as a Benfica fan, man, I'm sitting here, Alfredo. I don't know what's the proper way to say it, if I'm nervously anxious or if I'm anxiously nervous. But whichever the proper way it is, that's how I feel.
Olha o
Going
gajo.
into
Olha o
Saturday.
gajo. O gajo está aí. Está aí. What's happening?
Ó meninos, estão lindos os meninos. Só estou a ver só estou a ver um menino. O Alfredo.
Só vês um.
Lourdes, anda cá a ver os meninos. Eu sei que eles são lampiões, não faz mal, anda cá. Lourdes.
What's going on, Eric?
What's going on? How are you guys doing?
Everything's good, man.
Mr.
Welcome.
Big Soccer Head, how are you?
Good. Is the sound coming in okay?
Yes, sound is great, man. Not as
Don't
good as
worry.
on the broadcast, but it's fine.
Okay, good. My headphones weren't working, so I'm hoping that it doesn't actually catch you guys.
No, you're fine. And for the listeners that don't know Eric is an old friend of the show, despite this being a Sportingista. Eric's connection to the podcast goes back a long time ago. As a matter of fact, Eric was the one that brought Chris on the show for the first time, and you brought him in, and he never left. He never fucking left.
Except he doesn't turn his camera on. What's going on with Cristiano Oliveira?
No, he's
Well,
he doesn't have a camera.
Dois gajos feios já chega. Três parte do ecrã.
É pá, mas isso é português.
Yeah. So here you are, Eric. If you guys don't know Eric is a soccer commentator. He did MLS. He's currently doing, is it NWS? Eric?
NWSL.
Told you.
NWSL. Yeah, which is the professional women's league here in the United States. Eric is an avid Sportingista as well, and you know Eric. He's been on the Seleção Pod all the time, and if you guys are members of our community, you obviously know Eric, and you know that Eric is a big Sportingista and a big football fan, and he consumes an inordinate amount of soccer all week long.
This is true.
I don't know how your wife puts up with it, but you know, God bless
she
her.
doesn't. but somehow I haven't been thrown out yet.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, definitely a good thing.
Yeah. So let's get it right into the derby. Sporting Benfica will host Sporting this Saturday, 6 p.m. local at Estádio da Luz. A little bit about the historical at Estádio da Luz or at Benfica's home grounds. 181 games played, 83 wins for Benfica, 51 wins for Sporting, 47 ties, 309 goals scored for Benfica, 247 for Sporting. Overall, 324 games between the two teams, between the eternal rivals, 139 wins for Benfica, 115 losses. Sporting has won the last couple of games. that two teams played each other. Last 5 games, 2 ties, 1 win, and 2 losses for Benfica. So clearly, Sporting having the upper edge on there. Both teams coming off of really shaky weekends. Benfica letting Estoril, as we just mentioned a few minutes ago, letting Estoril back into the game and leaving us on the edge of our seats.
Alfredo, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry. You said they won the last couple of games. They won the last game,
Last couple.
right? In
No,
the Campeonato.
last 2 at home. Last 2 at home.
Oh, at
Last
home.
season
Oh,
and
okay.
season.
Exactly. I was gonna say they
Yeah.
lost the last game they played. They lost at Benfica in their last second goal, and they lost in the Taça do Cerveja not too long. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, okay, maybe at Alvalade, okay, but not the last couple of
The
games.
last
Alfredo.
2 games in the Campeonato is
Yeah,
what
the
Alfredo was
Campeonato.
talking about.
Campeonato. Yeah, like I said, both teams coming off of tight wins. Benfica, obviously, as I mentioned, with a little bit of a sleeper at the end of the game. Sporting, and last-minute heroics by Quaresma with an outside shot, giving Sporting the win. And now the matchup pretty nice. Both teams with the same points coming into the penultimate jornada. On goals, Benfica with 82, Sporting with 85. They both conceded 26 goals. Yeah, it's a season where Benfica Sporting have been the most consistent teams. Obviously, Porto hasn't really been around; and they've had a season to forget. But yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Eric, and just a couple things and looking back. You got a season for Sporting that's Amorim starts, and everybody's extremely confident that Sporting could get that big campeonato. Well, they're still confident, but certainly didn't expect Amorim to leave that early in the season. Then you got João Pereira, which was a bet by the president, Varandas, which basically what he did is like, okay, João Pereira knows the system, knows this team, is good friends with Amorim, is going to be an easy handoff, and the wheels came off the wagon. Then you got the appointment of Rui Borges. Rui Borges starts his season with Sporting the best way possible by beating Benfica. And now we had a little bit of a shaky period with Rui Borges, with him trying to implement some of his ideas, then going back to what the team is familiar with the 3 center back setup, and Sporting sees themselves with a chance, much like Benfica, at the end of the season of winning the championship. But Eric, how have you seen this season by Sporting?
Well, first of all, I think your synopsis was great.
Thank you.
It just missed one point, which is that when they slipped up, when Ruben Amorim left, and you said they bet on, I think, gambled and lost on João Pereira. Probably the more appropriate word is they had an almost 10-point lead in the league. It was a substantial lead. So I think that even with João Pereira coming in and anticipating some hiccups, I don't think anybody expected for them to drop as many points as they did. It could have been disastrous. Borges takes over. I have to say that in the beginning, I wasn't completely convinced by the system that he was trying to employ, a 4-4-2 in the beginning. Then it changed into a 4-2-3-1. He was always tinkering, but he didn't want to he always wanted to stick with the 4-man back line. That was what he played at Vitória Guimarães, and that's what gave him success with that team. It's been interesting, but looking back and just preparing for the pod, just looking back, I knew that he was unbeaten in league play since he's arrived, but there has been a bit of a transformation. And what is most notable is, as you alluded to, a return to the formation and some of the principles that were so effective under Ruben Amorim. And that has been, for me, the key to success over the last few months. That is when they've won the most games. That is when they've looked at their best, even away from home, in this winning run, which is, I think, 5 games now.
Yeah.
4 of them, they've scored more than 3 goals, something like that. So things looking up. And another point that should be added is that in the middle of Borges' tenure, he had to deal with a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember the kids that he played against Dortmund? Simões played a lot of football. He's out injured with a broken leg. Morita went missing for a while due to injury. So there's been a lot of upheaval with this team. So the fact that they are neck and neck with Benfica and with a slight advantage, given the fact that in his first game in charge they won, is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. No, I forgot to mention that, but there was plenty of injuries for Sporting. Benfica had some, but I think that Sporting was really decimated. And at some point, you had Gyökeres that wasn't even at 100%, and he was just forced out there. And we had the whole injury with Pot, which was out. Then apparently there was the wrong diagnosis, or apparently he did something to re-aggravate the injury. So
it was a telenovela.
Yeah, some key misses for sure, and played with the kids. Nunes obviously out for the season. Played with the kids, and he would just squeak by points, and that's what really they needed. And now they see themselves as re-energized here at the end of the season, with Gyökeres at his best moment, with Pot just making his comeback, but not yet at game shape, I would say. But this is a Sporting that enters these final couple games of the season at a very good level, and also confident, because I think there was a lot of nerves playing Gil Vicente. The fact that they couldn't get past Gil Vicente, they couldn't get behind Gil Vicente because Gil Vicente played in such a low block. There was a lot of nerves, but I think that that win at the end of the day galvanizes them to really enter this game and really take the game to Benfica, if you will, or what do you think the approach is going to be? Do you think they're just going to sit and wait?
That's a good question. Look, you mentioned the numbers. The rivalry between these two teams, Benfica has the advantage, especially at home. I think that Sporting in league play, in all the games that they've played, has only won like 16 times at Luz. I actually believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, if Benfica win on Saturday, which would, be horrific for me, it would be their 50th win at home against Sporting in league play, something like that. I don't know if my stats are correct. All that to say that Benfica have been dominant at home against Sporting.
Yeah.
So I think to answer your question, I would expect Sporting to sit back and try to weather a storm, because that Benfica are going to come out, punching, right out of the gates. The onus is on them to get a result.
The only problem with that, Eric, is that I believe Benfica plays better when they're, on the defensive side of things,
the ball.
when they're playing on a counter and they give the ball to the opposition.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how both clubs approach this come Saturday. At the end of the day, a draw benefits Sporting. So as you said, you expect, and I expect Benfica to come out firing on all cylinders, because we have to go get the goal. Benfica needs to walk away with 3 points, because as I mentioned, a draw does not benefit them, doesn't suit them at all. Obviously, there will still be one more game left to play. Benfica goes to Braga, Sporting will go home and play Guimarães. So, we've seen worse things happen before. But at the end of the day, due to the fact that they need to go get the goal, man, I think they have to come forward, and then might leave a lot of space behind them for Gyökeres to attack Mazaraújo on the right, because we all know, ladies and gentlemen, going into this game, that Gyökeres is going to be all over him like white on rice. It's a player that's been dealing with a lot of injuries throughout the last 4 or 5 months or whatever it is. So I do expect Sporting to exploit that. But it'll be very interesting. I think Benfica does play better on the counter. So
I think, first of all, I completely agree with you. And Cristian, you bring up a point that for me is the most interesting one going into this game. And that is how Borges approaches the game, knowing that a tie is sufficient. I mean, he'd still have to get a win against Vitória, which is no easy task. I think the game that what was it, 4-4 that game ended when they
but it could be a Vitória. If Vitória wins this weekend, Eric, Vitória will solidify the 5th place. You get what I'm saying? So they're really not playing.
The accounting.
Yeah, exactly. That could, now, if they lose points to Ferenc needs the points, right? But if they lose to Ferenc, and then they need to go into that game at Sporting to solidify the 5th place in the standings, maybe then it changes. But again, look, that could all be a moot point if Benfica wins the game, or
Yeah.
even if Sporting wins the game, right? Who cares about Guimarães and at that point?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think things change by the minute. But I just queria
Yeah,
clarify that.
but
Chris,
Chris-
Well,
I didn't
you
mean to
say-
cut you off.
I mean, I'll just add, I find it very unlikely. This is the first time in history for the Portuguese league, and I'm sure you guys have already said this, that either one of these teams could win the championship in that one game, right? So we've had teams win the title against their rivals in the past. Interestingly enough, out of the three big teams, Sporting is the only one who's never won the title at a rival's home. So Porto have done it at Luz, and Benfica have done it at Dragão. Benfica have done it at Alvalade a few times. So this would be a rare opportunity, or an unprecedented opportunity to win the title at Luz. Having said that, I find that getting a win in this game is going to be very tough. It's going to be very tough. And on the other side of the coin, I think Benfica winning by 2 goals is also going to be
I agree, dude.
very tough. So
I've
I
been
think
saying that, Eric. That's my fear. Is the
yeah,
two
and I
goal-
think it's
uh-huh.
going to go down to the last day, and who has the bigger
goal
Steve-
differential.
Chris, Chris, I'll do the same exercise that I did with Eric with you in terms of Benfica, and just recapping Benfica season. Started with Roger Schmidt in an exercise by Rui Costa that we felt it was going to be a little bit of a waste of time, and obviously that ended up playing out the way a lot of fans thought it was going to play out, with Schmidt being sacked. Lodge.
Yeah, all they had to do was listen to the last Benfica podcast of the season, a buy, keep, sell, loan, whatever it is, where I told them exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Fire Roger Schmidt. This guy shouldn't be the coach of Benfica tomorrow. Instead, he waited 4 weeks into the season to fire him. Wait until Benfica was what were we, like 4 points? I forget now, but I think we were 4 points behind Sporting already at the time.
Yeah.
So he just procrastinated for no reason.
Yeah.
But
Lage came in. He righted the ship, and the first thing that he did, he put the players playing in the right positions, and that gave Benfica a little bit of confidence and put Benfica on a run. But there were some inconsistent performances by Benfica under Lage. There was at a point that after that initial spurt of riding the ship and getting things right and getting Benfica back into a certain cadence of winning and certain consistency, there was some moments there where Benfica was shaky in terms of. There was a few times that we had a chance to. I remember right before New Year's, we had sole possession of first place, and we ended up giving that up after that, and Sporting took possession. But under Bruno Lage, the season hasn't always been consistent. It hasn't always been dominating. There's been a lot of games that Benfica hasn't played their best. There's been a lot of games where Benfica, much like the Estoril game, has left us, biting our nails at the end of the game, hoping that a goal doesn't go in and ties the game or loses the game. There's been games where Benfica has let in a goal and kind of wasted those opportunities. But how have you seen this Benfica season under Lage, and how do you see with the team coming into this game, Chris?
So go back to a point that we started at the beginning of the podcast. It's that common theme. Benfica finds a way to get a lead and then struggles later in the games. Benfica has created tremendous amount of opportunities, scoring opportunities throughout the season. But for some reason or another, you go back to Champions League games, you go back to other games against the big teams in Portugal, even a game like Porto, where Benfica was at the Dragão, could have very easily made that a really, really nasty, historic, game that we're going to remember for the rest of our lives with a lopsided scoreboard, and we just could not put the ball away when we need to. Benfica's been inconsistent and very inconsistent on the offensive side of things in terms of finishing. But I think from everything else, it's been the same team under Lage. We attack when we have to, we defend when we have to, with that little inconsistency. I think when Benfica finds a way and they get clinical in front of goal, I think games get easy. It's when we start desperdiçarem opportunities that things get real interesting. But look, the one thing going into this game against Sporting, not to switch topics, but it's something that I didn't mention before and I want to mention now again, which is The one thing that Lodge has done, and we could all criticize him at one point or another, there's been, as we've said so far, very inconsistent at times. But the one thing with Lodge, the big games, he's been able to prepare them all really well. Look at the games against Barcelona. Look at Porto. Sporting obviously lost the game, but that was early on.
Yeah.
But I do think he prepares these games really well. I think he'll have the guys prepared. I think the fans are going to make the difference come Saturday. Now, as Eric said before, could you see Benfica win this game at the lose? I could. 1-0, right?
Yeah.
It's that 2-0 scoreline that really gives me, keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
And then the other thing real quick is Sporting knowing that they could walk away with the draw and be in the lead. How will they approach it, right? And that scares me. Is Sporting going to play for the draw?
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a huge matchup on Saturday. It's going to be a game of freaking checkers.
Yeah.
Not checkers. What's the other one? Chess.
It's never going to be. It's never going to be easy. To be honest with you, and playing for a tie is never going to be a good proposition. Any team that goes and plays for a tie, it always ends up.
It's not a good mentality to go into a game with.
Not for sure. Yeah, but I wanted to touch up on what Chris was saying, and I agree that Bruno Lage prepares games very well. I think the only exception being the first game against Rui Borges, because I think there was a little bit of an unknown in terms of how Rui Borges was going to approach this game, whether Rui Borges was going to carry the system that he had success with at Vitória, or if he was just going to allow the team with 3 center backs. So he didn't have enough film on Rui Borges to determine what his approach should be or his game plan should be. And I think where he enters this game, Lage enters this game with a lot more clear ideas and a game plan to play against this Sporting under Borges.
And that game, if you go back to it, Alfredo, it took, I mean, let's be fair, guys. I know some of you guys are going to get offended, right? Especially the Araujo fan club. But if he just stood, Gyökeres is up, instead of trying to come in and intercept the ball, and then Gyökeres went down the wing on his own. If he just stood him up, maybe we're talking a totally different result. Maybe Benfica is up 2 points now, right?
Yeah.
Because you get a draw. So, look, we'll see what happens. But you do make a good point. I think at that time, nobody really knew about Borges. And I want to make this, I want to say this today while Eric is here on the podcast. You might think I'm crazy. Some of you will think I'm crazy. But I have this crazy feeling that even if Sporting is champions, there's a huge chance that they don't bring back Rui Borges. I don't think they're extremely happy with this guy. That's just my opinion. Speaking of different people in Portugal, and that's just the feeling I get. They're not content with him, but obviously they're not going to change coaches this late in the season.
What's your take, Eric?
I don't think they're thrilled with him.
I mean, it's interesting. It's crazy to say this, but we're talking about a guy who has gone undefeated in league play. And yet there are questions about his future at Sporting. And there have been quite a few games that I've watched where I've not been convinced by the way that Sporting were playing. But you know what's interesting? You guys know I'm in Charlotte. There's a Portuguese player at Charlotte. His name is Yuri Tavares. He played for Benfica. Yep. And we talk about the league all the time. And he's a really level-headed guy, especially for a Benfiquista. Those guys are rare. Maybe Alfredo. I can add Alfredo to that list. But one of the things, when I was down on Borges, he was the one to tell me, Eric, look at all the injuries he's had to deal with. Look at the fact that he had to recover points and he had to try and implement his principles. And then when those didn't work, he sort of had to shift and he had to find the right balance, all of that. So he was higher on Borges than I have been. But I think it's unquestionable that it seems silly to me that if he were able to win this title, the first time that Sporting would win back-to-back titles since their dominance in the 50s.
In 70 years, yep.
You're right. It would be crazy to think that he wouldn't be able to keep his job. And, these comments about Gil Vicente aside, I think he's carried himself well. I completely disagree with his post-match comments about Gil Vicente. And
with the exception of when he went after Harder.
You're right. That's
Okay,
true.
okay.
That's true.
Can ignore that one also.
No, I
Yeah.
completely forgot about that one. And to be completely honest with you, I was a little bit desligado at that time
Yeah, yeah.
from what was going on with the harder situation and the apology and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think he's done a very good job considering the injuries, considering the way that morale had dipped with João Pereira, the points that were lost. So this is a true test, I think, for him. Not just that he's playing Benfica, but playing Benfica in this particular situation. Playing Benfica, having won his very first game in charge. Playing Benfica, having maybe deserved to win the League Cup. You know, it was only at the end that you guys were able to get that equalizer, and then it goes to penalties. It's actually kind of amazing that all three domestic titles are being decided by these two teams, right? Because there's the Portuguese Cup after this as well. So this is going to be a test of his fortitude.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a test of his tactical acumen, exactly for those reasons that we mentioned. The fact that he doesn't need to win, but I think it would behoove him to go into this game looking for the win.
Yeah.
Because I do think that there's a fragility about Benfica that you guys mentioned.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'll end on this point. Let me just end on this point. But there are a few places like Luge when the fans are right behind the team, and that place is loud and intimidating. So it's going to be a very tough task.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you guys. I think that if Rui Borges win the title, there's a lot of leverage on his side. But we have seen some, like for example, against Gil Vicente, played Saint Just in the middle of the defense, which is that's not where he plays the best, right? Leaving
and not where he's played very often.
Right, leaving Kenda, despite his very high minutes, he has the most minutes, I believe, in Sporting's roster in playing minutes, leaving him out against Gil Vicente. I mean, there were some questionable decisions, and even some of the substitutions. There's some questions, but I think that he's still a guy that's still learning. I mean, the one incident with Peixoto now, I think those things are things that you kind of have to take lessons from it. And I think that as a coach behind or in front of a great institution like Sporting, you need to conduct yourself in a certain manner.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yep.
Alfred? The whole thing with Peixoto too was exacerbated by the fact that Peixoto came out a month ago and said that he would want Lage and Benfica to win the title, right? And I don't think
no, it wasn't.
Did it?
Eric,
I don't-
I'm just saying it wasn't.
Well, hold on, I'm not saying that. I'm not
everybody's
criticizing Peixoto.
No, Peixoto,
criticizing
the
Peixoto, but-
cameras called Peixoto after Benfica beat Gil Vicente. You know, the coaches shake hands. And the cameras called Peixoto telling the opposition coach saying, "I hope you're champions." And that's where this stems from. He wasn't.
No, that's what I'm saying. And I'm not necessarily
Okay.
saying that what Peixoto did is wrong. I mean, we all know who Peixoto played for as well. So I think that sort of I think that annoyed Borges, and I think that's one of the reasons he came out and said the things that he said, and he was wrong, because Gil Vicente, if anything, has played well against the top teams, and they played extremely well against Sporting.
And
didn't Sporting lose points to them in the first half of the season?
They tied.
Moreirense.
Exactly.
No,
So
and he lost to Moreirense earlier this season when Peixoto was Moreirense's coach. Borges did.
So listen,
Not Borges. That was João Pereira. He was in charge of the team at that point.
Was it? Or was it Borges? Did
No,
Borges
João Pereira.
lose under Guimarães when Guimarães played Gil Vicente? I don't know. I'd have to look that up. Where's Dave? God damn it.
Yeah, no.
No, but look, I think it's an interesting matchup. I think it's an interesting matchup, and yeah, I think Chris, I think that there's a lot of Sportingistas that perhaps would have liked to have a higher caliber coach.
If it happens, just remember where you heard it first. That's it. I know a lot of times I come on this podcast, and the Freddies of my witnesses, you guys have heard us for years now, since Eric invited me to come on with you many years ago. And a lot of times I come on here and I say things and you guys call me
Yeah.
crazy, and then you fast forward 3-4 months and they happen. So I'm just saying it's another one I'm throwing out there. If it happens, just remember where you heard it. Don't go to Vola, don't go to the guy on Sam TV. Remember where you heard it
Yeah,
first.
I got I got a couple of storylines here that I wanted to. First of all, is the Jenny Katamu factor. It seems that Jenny Katamu's
He
favorite
scores
victim.
winners against Benfica.
Always. And what is it? And what is it, Eric and Alfredo? I told you this on last week's podcast. It's go deep down to the end line, cross it back second post, and the Benfica defender is always ball watching.
Yeah.
And he scored against us multiple times just like that.
Yeah, so there's
May it happen again.
there's that factor, and then
Scallop,
as you guys alluded earlier with Araújo not being as 100% and being targeted by Vitor Gyökeres on the left hand side. The other question is for you, Chris. Does Di Maria play this game, or does Lage go for somebody who could give more support to Mas Araújo?
I think I've been thinking about this one lately, to be brutally honest with you, because in big games like this, Di Maria tends to make the difference. But because of the situation with Araújo, I've actually contemplated in my head multiple times over the last few days what his 11 would be. And I do think he's going to switch Artur Kuglu over to the right side in order to help out Araújo. And I believe he'll play Dahl on the left side.
No Bruma,
So that's-
no Sheldrup.
No,
Instead, he's gonna
Bruma's
pull
been an
Dahl.
afterthought. No, it's not gonna be anybody like that. I think Dahl has proved that, like we said, since he's arrived at Benfica, he's been a pleasant surprise. The kid is a baller. I think he'll be ready to play on Saturday, and I think he'll implement to help him on the defensive side of things. With Artur Kuglu helping out Araújo, I think it's gonna be interesting. Will Araújo be able to hold up? Because if he doesn't, what's the alternative? You're gonna switch Austin back to right back? I mean, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna come up with Gouveia or anybody like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be very interesting. I hope he's 100%. He's been struggling of late, but you know what's his name? Oh my God, what's the striker? What's his name? Gyökeres. You know Gyökeres is gonna be up for it. He's,
for sure.
The guy lives for these moments. He's an absolute tank. And he'll be jumping on top of Araújo. And not just him, any player is going to be challenging and pressing Araújo and give him that little extra oomph. You know what I mean? If you're going to make him uncomfortable and maybe tweak a little something, why not while we're at it?
You know, Alfredo, you're making fun of me for all the soccer that I watch, but we have to make fun of Cristiano, where he has time to just contemplate all these 11s that Benfica might put out.
See,
like every day I'm thinking about this.
See, you can't contemplate because you're watching a lot of soccer. I just watch Benfica, so I got plenty of time.
There's only one topic in Chris's head.
That's it.
But Eric, in terms of a lineup, what do you see Roy Borges lining up? How they're going to line up against Benfica?
You know, I'm curious to see whether Morita starts in the middle with Yulman for a game like this. The Bast being played in midfield has been helpful at times to add a little bit of steel to the midfield.
Yeah, but can you play him there now, Eric, with Morita back? I mean, wouldn't you be doing yourself a disservice?
Yep. Well, don't forget that Morita has just come back from an injury, right? So he's
but like I say all the time, if he's there, it's because he's ready to go. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, and I like him and Yulman together in midfield. I like Diomande in the center of that three. Inacio obviously on the left. The Bast probably then would play on the right. I don't think St. Just starts this game.
No.
The question for me is whether Kenda comes into this game. I think that against Gil Vicente, the fact that he was on the bench, perhaps had something to do with the fact that they were playing Gil Vicente. And that harkens back to your point, Alfredo, about some of his decisions about, the guys that he puts in the 11, the position that they're in. You know, there have always been questions about his substitutions. I think that sometimes his changes are a little bit too late. So, Katamu is going to start, and he's been performing at a really high level recently as well, so he deserves to be there. Plot is most likely to start as well. So I think there are a lot of question marks about how he sets up his team for sure. I thought Plot was rusty against Gil Vicente. And again, it comes down to what I just said about Morita. You don't have a lot of minutes in your legs.
quick question. Because I haven't paid attention to Sporting, I'd be lying to you if I told you I watch Sporting games, right? But when you say what's Catano is going to play, is it going to be on the left? Because you're going to have Quaresma on the right, right? Or you're going to
No.
because
I
mean,
don't.
he's
You,
played.
you think Quaresma starts? Quaresma doesn't start.
Yeah, he's gonna go Diamande, Inacio, and Debas.
Yeah,
Devas.
3 at the back, but then he's going to have the 2 guys on the outside, and that's where Quaresma normally plays on the outside.
Araújo.
Quaresma can play both.
Araujo's on one side. I know. That's why I'm asking. That's
Yeah,
okay.
no, I think Katamu plays, and I would hope to see Kinda come back for this game. You know, Trincão is obviously going to start.
So the
he's
3 guys up
leader.
top will be Trincão, Gyökeres, and Kenda, right?
I think the question is whether Pot starts or not, and I just wasn't very impressed with him against Gil Vicente. Understandably, I don't think he had a particularly bad game, and I thought that Sporting started that game off really well, despite the fact that Gil Vicente were defending well, and that's including, you know, the fact that they conceded the penalty and Gil Vicente scored first, but I thought that Sporting lost a little bit of steam, and then towards the end, when they're playing with desperation, that's when they created a lot of their chances as well. So it's a good question. I'd like to see Kinda and Catamo in the 11, and then after that, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and for you, Chris, in terms of Benfica starting 11, the biggest question continues to be whether Di Maria plays or not. You did say Artur Koglu maybe to the right and Dal on the left. You know, what would you bet in terms of a starting 11 for Benfica?
That's it right there.
Yeah.
Just like it's it right there. I mean, you're going to have Araujo, the 2 center backs, Silva and Otamendi, with Carreras back on the left. You're going to have Pino, Koksu, and Ausnes in the middle. I think Dal's going to play on the left, Pavlidis, and Artur Koglu on the right.
Yeah.
And obviously, Trubin and goal.
Yeah.
Actually, can I just go back to something as well? Sorry, real quick. Araujo, Araujo was the guy that I was forgetting about.
Yeah.
He frustrated me early on in that game against Gil Vicente. I thought he was going to get sent off.
Yeah.
He shouldn't even be playing this Saturday, to be frank. But that's another story. For
Well,
another day.
and he ends up scoring the equalizer
2 minutes later. Exactly.
So the fact that he scores that goal, he plays well towards the end of that game. That's the guy that I'm wondering. Does he stay in the lineup? Does Kinda come in? It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I think you bring Araujo off the bench because he brings instant energy. You know what I'm saying? So that's
and
my
he can play
prediction.
multiple positions too.
Yeah, I'm not a Sportingista. I hope none of them play. But yeah, that's my prediction. I think he comes off the bench.
Yeah.
Because as you said, polyvalent with that energy, with that Uruguayo raça.
Polyvalent, huh? This really is a Portuguese podcast.
That's one of Chris's favorite Portuguese words, polyvalent.
I love that word. The fact that there's no translation in English really bothers me.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. Yeah,
trades.
jack of all trades. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, versatility. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Handyman. Whatever. Yeah.
Polyvalent.
No, look, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think that it's a game that the Portuguese league deserves. I think it's a game that we all hope that's played well by both teams and that there's no refereeing
No, we don't.
mistakes.
Alfredo, stop lying.
No, at the end of the day, I want to see a good game, but Benfica win.
Well, no, I hope Benfica. No, I don't even want Alfredo. Why you want that nausea? No, I'm good. I want Benfica to play well.
He's just saying that because I'm on here.
No,
that's what I'm saying. Don't be nice, man. Be honest. You don't want to see Sporting play well.
You guys know what everybody knows. None of these games are spectacles. None of these games are well, they are spectacles. That's not the right word. But none of these games are free-flowing. They're going to be broken. They're going to be cagey with moments that are going to be dangerous in transition.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's always one of those showcase games for the Portuguese league, right? And when there's a chance for the world to see the Portuguese league, we get these games, as Eric's saying, a lot of interruptions, not a lot of playing time, but it's a game where both teams feel that this is a do or die here. In the same way that when they play the Portuguese Cup, they will approach it the same way. But I think that there's a lot riding, and if you think back and you look back at what the season has been, for both teams and what both teams have endured throughout the season to come to this game to decide it all. I think it's. I don't think you could have written it any better, and hopefully Benfica wins it, obviously. But whoever wins it, I think at the end of the day, if it's a well played game and the team that wins it plays well, I think you have to say is a just victor, because both teams have been pretty consistent in one way or another throughout the season. So.
Here's a question for both of you, real quick.
I was gonna say the same thing. Well,
let's say so. Whoever wins this game, let's say whoever wins this game and goes on to win the title, what does that do for the Taça de Portugal final? Is it, because I wonder, obviously they want to win that, but it has to be at the moment a complete afterthought, right? Because the title is number one. That's the priority.
Yeah.
So I'm just envisioning a situation where the final, the Taça de Portugal, is such a prickly affair. You know, one of those infamous finals where you're going to see lots of reds and lots of fighting. Yeah. I mean, that's how I envision it, no matter what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, and you oftentimes see a little bit of a hangover from the champion, right? If the champion is involved in the Portuguese league final, right? Obviously, after a season of lots of pressure and lots of ups and downs, I think that when you clinch that championship, there's a level of disconnect, if you will, a mental disconnect. And I think that may carry over to the Portuguese Cup, and especially for Benfica, who haven't had much success with the Portuguese Cup in the last 30 years.
Exactly, Alfred. I was waiting for you to finish it, Alfred. But the wrinkle in your thought there is that Benfica's only won 4 taças in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So I do believe that if Benfica does come away with this title, finds a way to win the campeonato,
well, they can get the treble.
And exactly, well, the treble, yes, but forget the treble. At this point, treble's the afterthought. It's the Taça de Portugal, bro. You have to win it. Benfica, I believe, will approach that game with the utmost importance, and obviously Sporting will as well. I think it doesn't. If both of these teams were in 5th and 6th place in the campeonato and playing at the final Taça de Portugal, the game was going to be encountered in the same way by both managers and both teams. I do believe that, but I do think that it will be a little bit extra motivational for Benfica, because of the fact that, like I mentioned, they've won 4 titles in 30 years, which is absolutely unacceptable for a team like Benfica. And so, vamos ver.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. And obviously we're looking far ahead. But for me, the Taça de Portugal, even though its significance has diminished, has have so many domestic cups all over European football and internationally and globally. I mean, I still think that the Taça de Portugal, maybe because it's played at Jamor, is still such an occasion, right? You guys feel that way too?
I mentioned that last week.
We do, and real quick, just wanted to throw this out there because you mentioned, Eric, earlier, and you're absolutely right, how they're going to play in the Final Taça de Portugal. And let's not forget, they're also going to play in the Super Taça. They'll be faced because they're going to finish 1-2 in the campeonato, 1-2. Obviously, both teams in the final for the Taça de Portugal, so they're going to face each other in the very first game, also of the 25-26 season. So these teams are going to see a lot of each other. It's a huge rivalry. I mean, there are many Benfiquistas who will tell you Benfica's biggest rival is Sporting Clube Portugal, not Futebol Clube do Porto. So
that's correct.
Depends who you talk to, but you know,
only tripeiros would say otherwise.
No, there's plenty of Benfica fans, Benfica podcast listeners that I speak to, that will tell you that to them, it's Porto, because you have to remember, and this is not a jab at Sporting, but anybody that's in their early 40s, right, or even my age,
even
right,
younger.
No, I'm not going younger. No, younger is obvious. Younger, it's even more obvious. But a guy in his mid-40s has never really seen Sporting be that rival to Benfica. It's always been Porto. Porto's the one that's been, winning titles. You know what I mean? Winning pentas, beating us 5-0. You know, Sporting in our lifetime,
those two clubs,
championships.
Benfica and Porto, full of vigaristas.
Yeah. Let me just stop you guys here for a second. We'll continue in a second. I just want to say goodbye to our PAMA Media friends. Thank you for listening. You can continue listening and to our podcast and regular aggregators. We're gonna say goodbye here for this week. All right.
But getting back to because Eric, you asked a very similar question because you beat me right to the punch when you said I have a question. I said the same exact thing. But my question is it was similar but a little bit different, right? You asked about that, about who wins the campeonato, and then obviously attached it to the importance of the Taça Portugal. The question it's very similar, which is who will this campeonato mean more to, Benfica or Sporting?
That's very hard to answer, but I would say Sporting for
For the
one reason,
bicampeonato.
and that is that
The-
they haven't won back to back, in decades, and because it looked like it was a runaway title when Amorim was still in charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that the importance is definitely there in terms of that. I think for Benfica is important for one thing because I think that Lage really wants to consolidate his coaching season for Benfica. And also, don't forget, we are in an election year for Benfica. Elections take place in October. So it's important that that Benfica ends up the season with some silverware, not just a Taça da Liga.
So the next question is: does Benfica spend like a drunken sailor if they win the title, or if they lose the title?
I think you're going to spend either way, right? Because you got Champions League money, you have FIFA World Cup money. I think that Rui Costa is going to have to do something for people to
See,
for
but
him
there's
to be
one
fresh in his
scenario,
mind.
Alfredo. There's one scenario where you break the bank.
Which
There's
is
one. I don't know. I'm asking. I mean, they can't tell me both. There's only one. Is it when your back's against the wall, or is it when you just won everything and you broke your arch rival's heart, as Eric said, and rightfully so? I think if Sporting loses, it's absolutely devastating to them because of the huge lead they had at one point in the season. I think this will be,
But I think you could shrug that off also in terms of look, 3 coaches, lots of injuries. The fact that the team reached this far in the season in the position that they're in, a lot of Sportingistas may look at it and say that's an accomplishment in its own. Right?
You sound like a lagarto right now.
No. I'm just saying. I'm trying to kind
Being
of
objective.
take my red glasses out and look at it in that way.
I just, and again, I'm not being a Benfiquista because you know me, I always look at both sides. But like, why is Sporting getting a pass and Borges is getting a pass? One Lage, I mean, Benfica's situation was shittier. I mean, Benfica's situation at one point, majority of the fans here on the podcast and a lot of our friends did not even want Lage as a coach. We thought that's it. We're giving away the season. We thought the season was done before even firing Roger Schmidt. And now the fact that Benfica's climbed all the way back with inconsistencies along the way, with injuries along the way, but nobody's talking about that. Why is
Yeah,
it
look,
that
I don't think I think you've got a point there, right? I don't think the stories for both these clubs this season are that dissimilar. But you add some ingredients to the story. The fact that Benfica had a really interesting Champions League campaign. That loss to Barcelona was obviously very, very, very painful. I was actually rooting for Benfica. I'll have you know, because I want Portuguese teams to do well in Europe because it's good for the league. But there is another point that I wanted to add, as to going back to Cristiano's question about whom this title is more important to. And this also harkens back to a point that Cristiano made about, for so long, the rivalry being between Benfica and Porto. I think that if Sporting wins this title, I think Sporting, the club, as well as the sócios and the fans, will feel like Sporting is well and truly back.
we've arrived
amongst the bigs.
exactly?
You know
we've
what I mean?
arrived
Because there may be a little bit, and maybe it's just me feeling this way. And I thought a lot about this after Amorim left, because I was actually, and I know, just based on social media and speaking to some of my friends, that when Amorim departed the club, there was a fear that there would be a regression. And then that regression happened with João Pereira. And I think that fear wasn't just limited to this one campaign. It was, oh no, are we going to devolve back into the club that we have been, where, yes, we are historically one of the big 3, but if you look at recent events, and by recent, the last couple of decades, we haven't really been at the races with Benfica and Porto. And by being able to win this year, they at least can say, look, we are here and we are here to stay. And it wasn't just about Amorim, even though this has a lot still to do with Amorim.
We went through the mud and we still came out
Yeah.
on top. We
No,
still came. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
I think that that Varandas has ushered in a new season, a new era for Sporting. Right? It was
It's ironic, right?
the gamble on Amorim, right? Which paid off tremendously. Right? There was a lot of consistency in that. There was some surgical acquisitions by the club, Gyökeres being one of them, but they've been very good in terms of the players that they have acquired, even internally. Ugarte, Port, a lot of guys that they picked up that really hit the ground running and made an immediate impact. And now the club is kind of seeing this a bit of a golden age, if you will, a reemergence after having so many failed seasons. But it's like Eric says, there was at a point that Sporting would be in the running, and come Christmas time, Sporting would just fade away, and Benfica and Porto would go ahead. But with Varandas, it seems that they've reached this consistent performance and consistent way that they show themselves in the league, even as a club as well, and the way Varandas has led this club in his past few years. I think that winning the Bicampeonato establishes Sporting as the big three, as the club that's going to fight to the end with both Sporting, with both Benfica and Porto. So
and they've dealt, even in the transfer market. You mentioned all those players. They have dealt like a big club in Portugal for the first time in a long time over the last few seasons. I recall Sporting signings to be sort of, milquetoast. Like you were kind of excited about some names, but you were never truly excited about the potential of a player. You always looked at Porto and Benfica and you thought, oh man, they've signed this guy, they've signed that guy. These are real difference makers. And I don't think you saw that with Sporting until recently, or hadn't seen that with Sporting for a very long time until recently. And I think that has a lot to do with Varandas, as you said. But there's another figure here we haven't spoken about.
Hugo Viana. That's
Viana.
Exactly. That's
and
who's
Viana
behind
is
it.
left. So it's not just Amorim, but it's Hugo Viana's departure. And, how is he replaced? Who's now going to be in charge of the player recruitment, knowing full well that Hugo Viana doesn't leave without leaving behind a blueprint of the players that they should be trying to sign, which is why Sporting has been associated with a lot of the same names over the last couple years.
Yeah. I think that's all we got.
Well, I think you guys, point, and it's about Benfica.
Go ahead,
about Benfica.
Eric.
Just going back about Benfica spending big, when their backs are against the wall, do you spend big when you have titles and when you've had a season where potentially you could win a domestic treble? Like Sporting, I think Benfica is at risk of losing some big players. Yeah. I look at Pavlidis, for example. Arsenal has been linked with Gyökeres, but I've been arguing for months now that the better player for Arsenal and the way they play is Pavlidis, who I think is one of the best box players in world football. I mean, his elegance, his finishing. And I was looking at his stats, and it's interesting that the number of goals he has, which I forget, are very closely associated with his XG. Now, I don't know if the people who listen to this pod like those stats, but it shows to me that he is a player that when given the opportunity to score, he scores.
He's got 28 goals, I think, across all competitions.
Able to hold on to him. And Aktürk Koglu, who I covered when I called a lot of Turkish games, when he went to Benfica, I was heartbroken because this is a guy that I really liked at Galatasaray. He's going to have a market. So how many players are Sporting and Benfica going to be able to hold on to? That's a big question.
I think Benfica is going to lose Carreras for sure. I think if Artur Kugel, and that's going to be a huge loss, but the fact that they've been able to find a little gem in what's his name, Sebastian Dahl, who's come over from Roma on loan. Obviously, there's that buyback option that they could trigger for €1 million, which leaves me a little preoccupied. But I do believe that if Benfica is able to hold on to him, look, he's not Carreras, but it's not going to be Malgarejo or one of these bums that we had at left back in years past. I think
Hey,
he's
he's good
more
in
than
South
suitable.
America, the Paraguayan.
Yes, he is. But he'll be good. He'll be suitable for Benfica. I think we'll be very comfortable with him. As far as Artur Guglu, I mean, look, he's very inconsistent. He's been hit and miss. I do think Benfica has options. I do think Benfica is going to be looking at the possibility of bringing in João Felix, which they're, if that happens, Di Maria will be out. I believe Artur Kuglu could be out. I'm not going to be the one to miss um, Artur Kuglu, to be brutally honest with you guys. Now, as far as Pavlidis, I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be an interesting summer for Benfica. Depends on what he does in the Club World Cup. Obviously, he still has some very important games down the stretch here that he could impress scouts and teams alike throughout European football a little bit more. But I still think it's a little bit soon for him to leave. I think Benfica will be asking for a very high transfer in return for him, and therefore I think teams will want to see a little bit more out of him, want another prove it season from Pavlidis. Where Aguirre, he's on year 2 of terrorizing Portuguese football. Um, I don't know if I'd pay 100 million for him, to be brutally honest with you guys. If I had the
He'll
money,
go
and I
for
was,
six. He'll go for 60.
Yeah.
I believe he'll go for 70, but I think 70 is the price. But I don't know. I'm not a big Yorkers fan,
Yeah.
and if you guys
What?
recall, I'm not a big Yorkers fan. Eric, listen, you can say what all you want. Everybody. If you recall what I said about a half hour ago about crazy things I say on this podcast, and people say what, just like you, and then fast forward, like okay, because everybody thought I was crazy when I talked about Darwin Nunez. I went on podcasts
What did you say about Darwin
and
Nunez?
talk sport in Liverpool and told everybody you guys are going to be, at the end of the day, you're going to be disappointed with this guy because he's
I
not
said
the
the
$100
same
million.
thing.
Okay,
You were right about him. You're wrong about Jokeres.
and I think Jokers is a very similar player. Very in Portugal, faz a diferença. In Portugal, his grit, his attitude, his determination, his power, his strength, which power is the same shit. His speed in Portuguese football, he's able to boss people around and throw defenders around. I've always been very weary of players like that can't make the difference with the ball on their feet. And I use that to young kids at the very young age of 12, 13, when they're bigger and stronger than everybody else. They're always going to be better than everybody else. Now, what's going to happen when you match up with a kid that's just as fast and as strong as you are? You have the ability with the ball at your feet to find a way to go around these types of guys. And I put Goikers in that same box. And I do believe that's the reason why he's still at Sporting, because I believe teams look at him the same precise way that I do. That he doesn't have that extra, I call it Ginga, but nowadays players don't really have Ginga no more. Now it's just touch it aside and put it around them. Football has absolutely changed over what we grew up watching. But I do think that teams are hesitant on paying that type of money because he could potentially, at the end of the day, be the very next Darwin Nunez, who is a phenomenal athlete, a player that could run with anybody, just as strong as anybody. He's one of those horses you like to see run at one of these Kentucky derbies. He's pretty to watch, but then when you put the ball on his feet in front of the goal, and I do believe, though, Eric, I do agree with you on this. Right, I'm not going to give you the opportunity to correct me. I'll correct myself. Gyökeres is a better finisher in front of the goal than Darwin Nunez.
Thank you.
No, Jokeres is better than Darwin Nunez, man. But like you said, look, I think the litmus test is going to be when he goes to one of his these top leagues and he has to play with the big boys. That's the litmus test.
Eric, prediction on where Gyökeres, because I got one and it's going to shock you. So prediction on, I know the easy one to predict is, the easy apple to pick on is Man United. But do you think he's going to Man United? Where do you see him going?
You know what? This is going to sound a little bit crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at Atletico Madrid.
Dog, I got a crazier one for you, if you like.
Go
Espírito Santos in Nottingham Forest.
Oof.
I don't think so.
Because I'll tell you why.
He's gonna have cash.
I'm gonna tell you why I see that happening. You ready?
Yeah.
Because as you stated before, and I stated, right, we're 10 million different, right, on the price. You said 60, I said 70. I do think if there's a team that's going to come anywhere close to that 100 million, it will be a team like Nottingham Forest, because they know they won't be able to get the top guys on the market, right? They won't be able to get the Victor Osimhen's and those type strikers, right? They're gonna have to overpay to get a guy, and they'll say, you know what, we'll pay for Victor Gure if he's nasty, if he's the player that everybody's predicting he'll be. He'll help us win a lot of points, help us do well in the standings, and then we could then in turn around and sell him to one of these other teams and make some more money off of him.
No, because going back to your point about difficult to sell, I think if there's any concern, and concern is a strong word, is about his age, right? He's 26, he's about to be 27, so you're paying that much money. You're wondering, well, how long am I going to have him for? I'm not going to be able to sell him for a profit. I think that's been one of the things that clubs have had to keep in mind. He'll only go to a big club. The question for me is whether he's willing to try it out again in the Premier League when things didn't go well for him at Brighton. But understand,
a lot of people don't remember
as a winger at Brighton, which isn't his position, even though he likes running off the wing.
Yeah.
So Manchester United, Arsenal, I think Chelsea is probably going to have a very good look at him. But if I were him, I would think of the opportunity to play for one of the big teams in Spain or Italy. And for me, Atletico Madrid, the type of football that they play is perfectly suited to his strengths.
Yep. All right, let's get out of here. Chris, you good?
I'm great.
I just wanted to say one last.
Eric on the podcast once again. All the Freddies, man, appreciate you guys checking us out. Smash the like button, please.
Yeah.
Eric, you do the same, right? Don't forget, smash the like button. It won't pop up on your resume. Don't worry.
I'll
Benfica
be hoping to join you after the Taça.
Yeah, you still got the Taça
hopefully
Portugal and the Super
I'll be able to
Taça.
gloat. I'll be able to gloat about the championship. A double would be nice.
That's it. The Lagarto when you was coming out. That's your problem. That's you guys' problem all the time. You guys like to mandar foguetes on the festa. E depois choram. Pois, ai mãe, lá foram os dedos.
Yeah, you could. Thank you, Eric. You can find Eric on is the NWSL still going? Are they in season right now?
Yes, it's still going.
Fucking shit, man. I'm sorry. I should know this. You can find Eric.
You don't
weekly.
have the subscription, Alfredo?
I don't.
You don't need a subscription. It's free.
It's on YouTube,
free.
right?
That's the great thing about
that's
NWSL.
why I haven't. Why I thought it was on Apple TV.
It's on ESPN. It's on CBS. It's on Ion, and it's on Amazon Prime.
Awesome.
There's a former Benfica player, right? Playing. She went blind, right, on one eye. She plays
Jessica.
for Gotham.
That's Jessica Da Silva. She plays for Gotham.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's back playing. They actually just signed a Canadian player. Portland Thorns just signed a Canadian player from Benfica.
Ali.
Yeah, the blonde.
No,
I remember her.
No, it's not the blonde.
I forget.
Ali Lu or something like that.
I actually know. I can't think of her name right now, but there's a Brazilian player who plays for Benfica, and I know somebody who was very close to her. He was one of my coaches in New York, a guy by the name of Wilson, and I played against her. Just pickup soccer, and she's an absolutely phenomenal player. And I know that she's a big deal at Benfica. Not quite sure why she hasn't played for the Brazilian national team yet.
Jogar contra ti, everybody looks good. Eric.
That's a very good point.
And on that note, Eric, it was always a pleasure, my friend. Hopefully we could.
Thanks for having me. Great to connect with you guys
again. Yeah, thanks to all the Freddies. Thanks to everyone that's going to listen to us. Smash the like button. Leave us a review on iTunes, so on and so forth. Thank you very much. Be back next week. We'll recap the derby and look ahead to the last game of the regular season for Benfica. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.